So now that I've drawn the male body um, pretty much completely, we're gonna move on to the female body. And the female body, um, anatomically, is it has is the same mechanisms as the male body, obviously, but the limbs are much sleeker. The hips are wider. I think that's the aside from breasts, that's the biggest difference is just wider hips and legs that are set further apart. So you can see proportionally compared to my chest, my pelvis is much larger. I always define the breasts with little circles where I guess the nipples would be, but I do that actually because it gives me a center point where I can you can see I've drawn lines um, like a grid. It makes them volumetric for me rather than just flat circles on the chest. Um, and I'm drawing in the anatomy on her legs, but I'm keeping it much sleeker and softer uh, because too much muscle on a woman. Um, Depending again, obviously there are a lot of different type of women, there are a lot of different type of men, but for the I guess an idealized sort of body for a woman, it's longer and sleeker and softer than a man's body. And also in terms of the pose, I would never generally pose a male figure this way. You can see I've got the whole figure has a real curvature to it from top to bottom, and the hips are angled the opposite way from the chest, and she's got her hips, you know, pushed out, and it's much more of a um, it's much more of a feminine posture. So here's the female body from the side. Um, I think the big difference between a female body here and a male body is the buttocks are nowhere near as boxy. They're longer and sleeker, and the hips again are a little more accentuated, but it's not quite as visible from the side. The most important thing is just not having such a muscular rear end. So here I'm going to go ahead and place the breasts on the chest, uh, looking up at the chest a little bit, um, and you can see that they aren't they aren't like beach balls, and um, they don't stick out like spheres on the chest. They're very flattened. Um, they're almost like a half circle that's placed onto the rib cage as a base, and they're a little bit because of gravity. The bottom of the breast is much more rounded than the top of the breast because it obviously hangs from the top. They show that the breast is it's an oval shape, looking directly at it from the front, more rounded at the bottom and lengthened at the top. And you should always think of it um, having weight to it. Uh, and hopefully these very simple drawings will get that across. There's a breast that is just a ball on a chest that has no weight, and it's just protruding outward. And here's more of a natural breast, and you can see that it's got a pull point at the top, and uh, it's very rounded at the bottom and affected by gravity. So I'm going to use these two, this one to start with, and a female one in just a minute. Figures, just simple tube form figures to maybe more clearly define the differences proportionally between a male figure and a female figure. Um, so I'm starting with a male figure. This is just a flat pose. Um, it's very simple. And now my female figure has a smaller chest already, you can see, than the male figure. And the head will be the same size. I'm going to make them the same height. And the pelvis is going to be a fair amount larger in comparison. And you can see actually the stomach area is smaller as well. So, and the fact that the chest is smaller and the stomach is smaller, it actually accentuates the size of the hips, which are larger. So it really makes the hips look even larger in comparison. And the swelled hips, the wider hips, make the I guess there are a lot of different ways to draw women. I tend to like them not not huge, but not very, very thin either. So with a little more meat on them, and that's how I'm drawing this one here. And now I'm just going to try and simplify something that I've been talking about quite a bit, and that is just the difference in angle between the chest and the pelvis. And this, you can use this for men too. If you want a guy to look like he's relaxed, stick a hand in his pocket, thrust a hip out. But I figure this just standing completely straight uh, looks like they're standing at attention. They really don't look like they're an actual human being, just relaxed. Whereas when you give the body some curvature and thrust one hip out and bring the other one in, bend one of the knees, and distribute the weight onto one leg, you can see that it looks much more natural and flowing. And so I've got the head angled away from the shoulders, the opposite way of the shoulders, and then the pelvis angled the opposite way of the shoulders again. So it's like a 3-point process, um, and that kind of thing I think is very important to body dynamics. If you have one arm punching forward, you want to have the other leg coming forward. So you'll have the arm that's coming forward extends all the way out, and then the same leg, if it's the right arm coming forward, that same leg will be extended all the way back, and it gives gives the body a lot of length, and it gives the body full extension. And it's much more dynamic than if you were to punch with the right hand and bring the right knee forward. It really takes all the power out of the punch. So here I'm drawing a woman from behind, like a 3/4, just to get the shapes of the hips in and the buttocks in. Pretty simple. I'm just gonna go in and quickly draw the hips from behind. It would be very rare for me to draw a woman standing the way that I did just a minute ago with her legs together. It's much more common, again, the same way that I would do it in the front. It's much more common for me to put one leg forward, extend a knee out, and put the weight onto one leg. It's just much more natural looking and pleasing looking. So that's what I'm doing here, just from behind. You can see the legs in a more of a natural pose with the weight on one leg. And that kind of a pose actually, it lengthens the buttocks a little bit, and it makes it look uh, much more attractive than the top one where she's just standing flat, and it kind of has a bit of uh, a little more gravity to it, I guess. And so here's just a quick drawing of a woman's body from the side. Um, Notice that the pelvis is leaned forward quite a bit, and the back uh, curves in pretty far. And I just try and keep everything very, very soft and feminine. Um, uh, I think harder lines and defined muscles and that kind of thing really fight what I'm trying to get from a figure like this. So now I'm going to go ahead and start working on a couple arms. Um, and we've already covered men's arms, the basic anatomy and the construction, and this follows the exact same rules. The big difference being that everything is much longer and much leaner and softer. So it is very, very important to um, have a good overall shape for your arm that your muscles are fitting into, because you really don't want to let the muscles take over on a woman's arm. They're absolutely necessary to understand in a woman's arm, I think, or leg, even just for lighting. But even the lighting that you use, you really don't want to have the same kinds of striations and same kinds of uh, same amount of detail that you would put into a man's arm. So here's a woman's arm from behind. You can see again, all the same muscles apply, all the same shapes are there. It's all just very leaned out and has less of an effect on the overall shape of the arm, which is left very soft. Generally speaking, women have a little more body fat than men. Um, so they really don't have the same kind of muscle definition as a rule. And even superhero women, I think you have to be very wary of the amount of definition you're giving to your women, because it can be uh, considered a little less attractive. I mean, I think that ultimately the decision has to be yours, the sort of people that you want to draw. You can draw your men heavily overweight, and that's just the way that you draw men, or very, very thin, or very short, or very tall. And I mean, those are decisions that are yours to make. But I think it's very helpful to know what the expected ideal is. It's probably a little more difficult to get work if you want to be a working artist and you're not drawing really the physical ideal. That's what viewers by and large are looking for, and that's what certainly editors are looking for. So I've just drawn a man's head and neck, and now I'm drawing a woman's head and neck, and very simplified. But I just want to get across quickly the difference. Not only in terms of, you can see with the woman's head, her jaw is actually much smaller and softer than the man's jaw without the same cheek definition. But now the neck, you can see, is actually much softer and smaller and appears longer as a result. It's not actually longer than the man's neck, but it appears longer because it doesn't have the same thickness to it.